The dog tags were ripped from her neck, the metal chain burning her skin. 3 male cadets laughed. One held the tags high in the air. "This isn't your place," he said. The others clapped. The woman said nothing. She just looked at them. There was no fear in her eyes, no anger, just silent knowledge. Because the name on those dog tags belonged to a soldier who'd rescued 3 teammates behind enemy lines. The blood type on that medal belonged to someone who'd carried wounded brothers on her back for 48 hours. And that chain would hold the Medal of Valor pinned to her chest at graduation. But nobody knew yet. When she'd be called to the stage, when the commander would tell her story, when everyone would learn that the owner of those dog tags was a war hero. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Military and Veteran Stories so you never miss these powerful tales of courage and honor. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today? Her name was Staff Sergeant Maya Reeves, though at the Advanced Leadership course at Fort Sterling, most people just called her the transfer, or that woman, or sometimes nothing at all. She'd arrived 3 days ago. New class, new faces, new environment. She was 32 years old, compact build, quiet demeanor, the kind of soldier who didn't demand attention. Her uniform was regulation perfect. Her posture was disciplined. But she was female in a course that was 90% male, and that made her visible in ways she'd rather not be. The Advanced Leadership course was designed to prepare mid-career NCOs for senior positions. 6 months of intense training covering tactics, leadership theory, personnel management, and strategic planning. It was competitive, demanding, and for some students, it was also tribal. The kind of place where groups formed fast and outsiders got tested. Maya had been through worse, much worse. But this particular test was starting earlier than she'd expected. The incident happened on day 4. Morning formation hadn't started yet. Cadets were gathering in the barracks common area, drinking coffee, making small talk, establishing the social hierarchies that would define the next 6 months. Maya had gone to her locker to grab her notebook. When she returned, Cadet First Class Brandon Cole was holding her dog tags, dangling them like a trophy. His friends, Cadet Jake Morrison and Cadet Tyler Grant, stood on either side wearing matching smirks. "Looking for these?" Cole said, swinging the tags. Maya stopped. Her face remained neutral. "Give them back." Her voice was calm, flat. No emotion, no escalation. Just a statement of fact. Cole laughed. "Or what? You gonna report us? Cry to the instructors?" Morrison stepped closer. "Maybe you should think about whether you really belong here. This course isn't for everyone." Grant added his voice. "Yeah, some people are better suited for other roles. Admin, supply. Support positions." The room had gone quiet. Other cadets watched. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked curious. Nobody intervened. This was the moment. The test. Every woman in the military has faced some version of this moment. When men decide to establish dominance. When the pack tests the newcomer. When respect has to be earned not through credentials, but through how you handle disrespect. Maya could have escalated. Could have grabbed the tags. Could have reported them. All valid options. But she chose something else. She chose to wait. "Keep them," she said quietly. Then she turned and walked away. Behind her, she heard laughter. Heard Cole say something crude. Heard Morrison add agreement. But she didn't turn back. Didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing whether their words landed. Because she'd learned something in 6 years of combat deployments that these cadets hadn't. Battles aren't won in the moment they start. They're won in the moment you choose to fight them. And this wasn't that moment. But let's pause here. Because what those 3 cadets didn't know was about to become their education. Maya Reeves wasn't a transfer because she'd failed somewhere else. She was here because she'd succeeded too well. In 2019, she'd been deployed to Syria as part of a special operations support element. Her team had been providing logistics and coordination for direct action missions. On October 12th, her convoy was ambushed 15 kilometers from friendly lines. 3 vehicles, 12 soldiers, hit by RPGs and small arms fire. Maya's vehicle was disabled. The 2 vehicles behind her were destroyed. 4 soldiers killed instantly. 3 critically wounded. The rest scattered into hostile territory. Maya, with a concussion and shrapnel wounds in her shoulder and leg, spent the next 48 hours moving through enemy-controlled terrain. She found specialist Chris Davison with a sucking chest wound. Carried him 2 kilometers to cover. Went back. Found Corporal Jennifer Lee with a fractured femur and massive blood loss. Dragged her to the same position. Went back again. Found Sergeant Marcus Webb unconscious with a traumatic brain injury. Brought him to the rally point. Then she held that position for 18 hours while enemy fighters searched the area. Used her radio to coordinate extraction. Provided security. Administered first aid with limited supplies. Kept 3 dying soldiers alive until rescue helicopters arrived. She was awarded the Medal of Valor, one of the highest decorations for combat heroism. The citation mentioned her extraordinary courage under fire and selfless dedication to her fellow soldiers. She'd been promoted, given opportunities for high-profile assignments. But she'd chosen this course instead. Wanted to develop her leadership skills. Wanted to prepare for senior NCO positions where she could train the next generation. Wanted to be more than her one extraordinary moment. She wanted to be a complete leader. So she'd requested the advanced leadership course. No fanfare. No special treatment. Just another soldier trying to improve. The instructors knew her record. The course commander, Colonel Patricia Vance, had personally approved her admission. But Maya had requested that her combat record not be publicized to the other students. She didn't want to be treated differently. Didn't want to be that hero or have people making assumptions. She wanted to be evaluated on her performance here, now, in this environment. So her file was marked confidential. Only the senior staff knew. The other cadets had no idea who they were dealing with. Days turned into weeks. The course was intense. Classroom instruction on military law, ethics, resource management, practical exercises in squad tactics, crisis decision-making, personnel counseling. Maya excelled quietly. Never the loudest voice in discussions, but consistently insightful. Never the fastest in physical training, but always finishing strong. Her instructors noticed. Her peers, some noticed. Others remained convinced she didn't belong. Cole, Morrison, and Grant continued their campaign of small harassments. Accidentally bumping into her. Making comments just loud enough to hear. Excluding her from study groups. Spreading rumors that she'd only been admitted through some diversity initiative, not merit. Here's the thing about bullying in military environments. It's often subtle. Not the dramatic confrontations of movies, but the quiet, grinding erosion of 1,000 small disrespects. The instructors can't see it all, and victims face a terrible choice. Report it and be labeled weak, or endure it and let it continue. Maya endured, not because she was weak, but because she was calculating. She knew graduation was coming, knew there would be a moment, knew patience was its own weapon. Every day they underestimated her was a day she learned more about them, about their weaknesses, about who they really were beneath the uniform. But wait, because something happened in week 8 that changed the dynamic. The course included a 72-hour field leadership exercise. Students were divided into squads and given complex scenarios requiring tactical decisions under pressure. Maya was assigned as squad leader for her group. Cole, Morrison, and Grant were in different squads, but everyone would be evaluated on the same terrain. The scenario: insurgent activity in a simulated village. Civilian population. Limited intelligence. High risk of ambush. Objective: secure the area, establish rapport with locals, neutralize threats. Every decision would be graded by observing instructors. Maya's squad included 6 other soldiers. Some were skeptical of her leadership. Others were neutral. One, Cadet Sarah Chun, had quietly befriended her and seemed genuinely respectful. Maya gathered her squad, briefed them calmly, and laid out her approach. Conservative movement. Intelligence gathering first. Avoid unnecessary engagement. Protect civilians. Work as a team. Some squad members wanted more aggressive tactics. Maya listened, explained her reasoning, then made her decision. They would do it her way. If it failed, it was on her. The exercise began. Maya moved her squad methodically through the terrain. She'd seen real villages, real ambushes. The simulated environment was good, but she could read it in ways the other cadets couldn't. She spotted the likely ambush positions, avoided them, found alternate routes. When they encountered civilians, role players, she engaged with genuine respect and cultural awareness that came from real deployment experience. When threats appeared, her responses were measured and appropriate. Her squad, initially skeptical, began to trust her judgment. They saw competence, saw confidence, saw someone who knew what she was doing not from textbooks, but from something deeper. Meanwhile, Cole's squad rushed in aggressively, ignored intelligence gathering, made noise, triggered multiple ambushes, took casualties, failed the primary objective. Morrison's squad did slightly better but made critical errors in civilian engagement that would have sparked international incidents in real operations. Grant's squad got lost, wasted time, arrived late to objectives. When the exercise ended and scores were posted, Maya's squad had the highest evaluation. Perfect marks on civilian interaction. Excellent tactical awareness. 0 unnecessary casualties. The instructors were impressed. The other students noticed. Cole, Morrison, and Grant were furious. Let's pause again, because this is where assumptions start to crack. Up until now, these three men had convinced themselves that Maya didn't belong, that she was inferior, that her presence was political correctness rather than merit. But results don't lie. She'd outperformed them in a direct leadership comparison. Their egos couldn't handle it. So instead of respecting her competence, they escalated. The harassment got worse. Comments got cruder. One evening, they cornered her after class. Not physically threatening, but verbally aggressive, demanding to know how she'd really gotten her high scores, suggesting she'd slept with instructors, calling her names that don't belong in print. Maya stood there and took it. Her face showed nothing. When they finished, she simply said, "Are you done?" Then walked away. But this time, Cadet Shin had seen it, had heard it. She reported it to the instructors. An investigation began. Cole, Morrison, and Grant were called in, interviewed, and given official reprimands. They were furious at Maya, convinced she'd reported them, even though she hadn't. The atmosphere became toxic. Other cadets started taking sides. The course that should have been about learning became about conflict. And through it all, Maya stayed quiet, focused on her studies, completed her assignments, prepared for graduation. Graduation day arrived. 6 months of work culminating in a formal ceremony. Families invited. Senior officers attending. Diplomas awarded. Speeches given. The auditorium at Fort Sterling was packed. Cadets sat in formation, wearing their dress uniforms. Maya sat in the middle rows. Anonymous. Just another graduate. Cole, Morrison, and Grant sat elsewhere, still bitter, still convinced they were superior despite evidence to the contrary. The ceremony began. National anthem. Invocation. Welcome remarks from Colonel Vance. Then something unexpected. Colonel Vance paused after her opening remarks. "Before we proceed with diploma presentations," she said, "I want to take a moment to recognize something extraordinary." The room quieted. Cadets looked at each other, confused. This wasn't on the program. Vance continued. "We have someone in this graduating class whose record I was asked to keep confidential. She requested no special treatment, wanted to be evaluated purely on her performance in this course. And I honored that request. But now, at the end of this journey, I believe it's time everyone knew who she is." Maya's stomach tightened. She hadn't expected this. Vance was looking directly at her. "Staff Sergeant Maya Reeves, please stand." Maya stood slowly, confused, uncertain. Around her, cadets stared. Cole looked angry. Morrison looked suspicious. Grant whispered something to the person next to him. Vance continued. "Staff Sergeant Reeves, would you please join me on stage?" Maya walked down the aisle. Every eye in the auditorium followed her. She reached the stage, stood next to Vance, trying to keep her face neutral. Vance turned to the audience. In October 2019, Staff Sergeant Reeves was deployed in Syria. Her convoy was ambushed. 4 soldiers killed instantly. 3 critically wounded. She herself sustained shrapnel wounds and a concussion. For the next 48 hours, she moved through enemy-controlled territory, located 3 wounded teammates, carried and dragged them to safety, held a defensive position against enemy fighters, and coordinated their extraction. She kept 3 soldiers alive who would have died without her actions. The room was silent, absolutely silent. For these actions, Staff Sergeant Reeves was awarded the Medal of Valor for combat heroism. Vance paused, letting it sink in. In the audience, Cole's face had gone pale. Morrison stared with his mouth slightly open. Grant looked like he'd been punched. Other cadets who'd befriended Maya looked stunned, but proud. Those who'd ignored her looked uncomfortable. Chin was crying quietly, pride and vindication mixing together. Vance wasn't done. She requested admission to this course not for recognition, but for development. She wanted to learn, to grow as a leader. And despite facing harassment, despite having her dog tag stolen, despite being told repeatedly that she didn't belong here, she completed this course with distinction. Her performance in every evaluation was exemplary. Vance turned to Maya. I'm told that on your first week here, some cadets took your dog tags and told you this wasn't your place. She looked out at the audience, her gaze finding Cole, Morrison, and Grant. They were wrong. This is exactly her place. She has proven it through combat, through courage, and through 6 months of excellent performance in this course. She reached behind the podium and pulled out a small display case. Inside was Maya's Medal of Valor, the one she'd been awarded 2 years ago, but rarely wore. You asked that your record remain confidential. I honored that. But today, at your graduation, I want everyone here to see what you've already earned. And I want those who doubted you to understand exactly who they were underestimating. She opened the case and removed the medal. The distinctive bronze star with blue ribbon. The weight of recognition that comes at terrible cost. Vance pinned it to Maya's dress uniform. The auditorium erupted in applause. Not polite ceremony applause. Real applause. Standing ovation. Families cheering. Instructors nodding with approval. Fellow cadets, most of them, standing and clapping with genuine respect. Colonel Vance stepped back and saluted Maya. A colonel saluting a staff sergeant. Not required by regulation, but required by respect. Maya returned the salute, her face finally showing emotion. Not triumph, not vindication, just the quiet acknowledgement of a moment she'd tried to avoid but now couldn't escape. When the applause finally died down, Maya returned to her seat. But everything had changed. The cadets around her looked at her differently, saw her differently. Cole, Morrison, and Grant sat frozen. Their harassment, their mockery, their theft of her dog tags. All of it now visible as the petty cruelty of small men confronting someone far greater than themselves. After the ceremony, during the reception, Maya was surrounded by well-wishers. Fellow graduates apologizing for not standing up for her. Instructors congratulating her. Family members thanking her for her service. She handled it with grace. Quiet. Humble. The same demeanor she'd had all along. Cole, Morrison, and Grant stood apart. Isolated. Other cadets avoided them. Their actions were now public knowledge. Their reputations damaged. Finally, Cole approached Maya. His face was red. Whether from shame or anger, it was hard to tell. He started, then stopped. Tried again. I didn't know. Maya looked at him. Same calm gaze she'd had 6 months ago when he'd stolen her dog tags. Would it have mattered? She asked quietly. Cole opened his mouth. Closed it. The answer was obvious. If he'd only respected her because of her medal, then he'd never really understood respect at all. He walked away without another word. Later, Sarah Chen found Maya on the steps outside the auditorium. You never said anything, Chen said. Why didn't you tell anyone? Maya thought about it. Because the medal doesn't define me, she said finally. It's something that happened. Something I did when circumstances demanded it. But it's not who I am. I wanted to be judged here on what I did here. Not on what I did 2 years ago. Chen nodded slowly. But they stole your dog tags. They harassed you for months. Didn't you want to make them shut up? Maya smiled slightly. They shut themselves up. Eventually. People like that always do. So what's the moral here? Maybe it's this. True worth doesn't need to announce itself. Maya could have walked into that course on day 1 and declared her combat record. Could have demanded respect based on past achievements. Could have used her medal as a shield against harassment. But she didn't. Because real strength is quiet. Real competence speaks through actions, not words. And real heroes don't need to remind you they're heroes. They just keep doing the work. Keep showing up. Keep proving themselves not because they have to, but because that's who they are. The dog tags Cole stole that first week, Maya never asked for them back. She ordered new ones. And when she saw Cole wearing his own tags at graduation, she didn't say anything. Didn't need to. Because the lesson had already been taught. The medal on her chest said everything that needed saying. Not, I'm better than you. But, Never judge someone's worth by how they look or who you assume them to be. You might be standing in front of a hero and not know it until the moment they prove what you should have known all along. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe for more military and veteran stories that honor the quiet courage of those who serve without needing recognition. And before you go, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today? And have you ever been underestimated, only to prove them wrong when it mattered most?